Hello and welcome to the Trevor Roberts Talkfest podcast. Total shocker for me that Maria goes home. Just finished the episode moments ago, and when I was thinking about my notes and my thoughts on the episode, it just changes the context for me as I look back at everything knowing Maria goes home. And I think part of that is because I was so confident that Maria wasn't going to go home. Now, it wasn't really it wasn't like I thought Maria was in first. I thought Maria was in third. I think Kelsey A and then Daisy and then I thought Maria. And that's not a slight against Rachel at all. In fact, I told Alex, my wife, that it wouldn't be a bad thing at all to be married to Rachel. She has an amazing family. She's an amazing woman. I think that she would bring life and just happiness and fun into the rest of your life. So I think Rachel's fantastic, but I just didn't feel like Joey had as strong a connection with her as he did with Kelsey and Daisy. And I felt like he was drawn to Maria in a way that he wasn't necessarily with any of the other women. So I do feel like what ended up happening with Maria was all related to doubt and not a lack of interest. And it's almost just like, okay, there's doubts. If she makes it another week and he gets sucked in even more, but the doubts, like, I don't think he ever thought the doubts were going to go away. And I do think he really feels like a fear that he's going to offer an engagement to a woman and she's not going to reciprocate it at the end, which could have happened with Maria. Now, and I think that there's some other things which I will talk about at the end when we get to her section. I think it was more than that. I think that that's a big piece of it. Let's start off with Kelsey A, and we're in New Orleans. The hometown episode is such a fun episode, but it's very unique compared to all the other episodes. It's essentially just like move to a city, check out the city, day portion of the date, see the family. You get the little moment outside when they say goodbye, go to the next one, repeat. And then you get four of those, and then you get a rose ceremony. And there's really not a lot of drama sometimes. If the hometowns go well, there's no drama. And they might try to make it seem like there's going to be drama or something's going on to try to pique our interest, but oftentimes there's just not drama in the hometowns. I think maybe there used to be. I don't know if producers used to entice or encourage families to do the sort of the questionnaire or the interrogation with the lead on, well, how are you going to do this, and will you move here, and did you say I love you to my daughter and not, and what about the other women? And there was just a lot of pressure that used to come pretty frequently. I wouldn't say like all the families have just changed. I think probably some of that had to do with some coaching from the production, and I don't think that that happens as much anymore. Without that, there's not going to be as much drama. But I think sometimes families just want to be true to themselves. Like Rachel's family, for example, had the most of any drama, but really, I think they were just being true to how they actually felt, and they were just protecting their daughter. But again, that was like nothing compared to what we've seen in the past. All right, let's stay on track here. So Kelsey A, we're in New Orleans. They do the tandem bike, which is pretty cool. They head out and check out the city. This is her third date where they go and check out the city. And like Alex said, this is the best date. This is like what it's like in real life. Doing the helicopter ride like he did with Maria and some of the other fun things that he's done. I think he might have done a helicopter with Daisy too. That's not real life for the most part. I mean, you can do it, but like for the most part, I think we've heard from some of the previous contestants in the past is that they do all these crazy fun things on the show, but then they go back to the real world and they don't do a lot of that stuff and they have to connect in a different way. He's truly connected with Kelsey A in what would be considered a realistic dating environment. Three one-on-one dates where you're exploring a city together. Now, I do think he explored New Orleans with Charity. I didn't double check it, but Alex brought it up, and I think she's right. I think for whatever reason, I don't know if Charity's from New Orleans, but or maybe they just like did New Orleans and Charity picked Joey on that one-on-one, but I'm pretty sure he did New Orleans with Charity. That just sounds right. Um, but we get to see they're at Bourbon Street. There's a walking band. They do beignets. Um, we get to see Kelsey seeing some butterflies and thinking of her mom and saying she feels like her mom's watching over them. Um, Joey sees that she's always excited. She wishes her mom was there to watch them. She really cared about her mom's opinion. So we start to see a little bit of Kelsey talking about her mom. But then we cut to Kelsey A taking Joey to meet the family. First person that you notice is her dad. And we've heard about her dad all season. And what really sticks out is that moment when her mom did pass away and he just lost the woman he loves, but he had the 5 children that he needed to step up and be there for, and how he did that. And Kelsey A, the way she has talked about him, has just set us up to really have a lot of respect for this guy. And then we get to see him, and he just instantly looks like a guy that you would respect. Um, she's telling her family, they sit down, about how they went to Spain and she had her one-on-one in Spain, and then they go to Canada. Um, wouldn't have been Joey's dad, or sorry, Kelsey's dad says there wouldn't have been a shortage of questions if her mother was there. And I loved hearing that she has a protective mom. Um, Kelsey A's dad gets out the picture book and we get a look at Kelsey. And it's fun seeing Joey get to see that side of her. Kelsey A is just a sunshine person, is what her sister says. She really is. She's just happy all the time, and it's so much emotion, and there's true vulnerability. She's so genuine. It's like it's not faked vulnerability at all. It just pours out of her. That's how um, I would love to be. I mean, I feel like I can be like that at sometimes, but it's not all the time. It sort of comes in waves. I think this is just who she is all the time. And it's so refreshing to be around or to see her be this way. And I feel like when I watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, there's so many values that you see when you get to meet when you go to hometowns and you see people and the way they interact with their family and how close they are with their siblings and how much their sister or their brother will be protective of them and care about not wanting them to get hurt in their love relationship and asking questions like, what is their relationship like with the other women and blah, blah, blah. It's just that kind of thing is so special to me. I love it. I love seeing people close to their families. So we get to see Joey and dad, Kelsey's dad. He says he's the protector. Um, Joey had a good example. He says in a normal situation, you'd only date one at a time. Um, but he says the feelings are real and they do make sense to him. And Kelsey's dad says it's very comforting. I do think that, um, okay, I'm sorry, I was just like drifting away at my notes there for a second. But the moment when we see Kelsey A talking to her dad, and she kind of reiterates the message that we had heard her tell Joey, I think it was in Spain, um, about how when mom passed away and how he lost the love of his life, but he had to step up for the kids and how he did that. She tells her dad that. And it's one of those things. I was listening to the Almost Famous podcast with Ben and Ashley and Ben talks about how hometowns are special because all season long, the women who are the contestants are talking about their families and they're talking about the worst parts of their life or something that they achieved that they're really proud of or something that they overcame or a previous relationship. And oftentimes they're thinking a lot and talking a lot about their families, and they're away for 6 weeks. And so then they come home and they are maybe able to articulate something that they haven't ever articulated before because they've just been thinking about it a lot, and they've been really spending time kind of crafting the message because they're going to say it to the lead. And she says it in a way to her dad that I truly believe she's never said to him before, which is really special when you think about it because I was watching his face intensely to see how he was reacting to it. And you could see the love in his eyes. He didn't smile though. Like there was nothing funny about it. And he was taking it in. Like he was so proud of her for saying it. But it also like she's speaking about the love of his life passing away, and it's not a funny thing. And it's not it's like, the cameras are on. Like if you think about it in real life, of course he would react like that. But there's cameras on him, and he's aware that he's being observed. And he's aware that this is going to go on national television where they're talking about his wife that passed away and the mother of 5 children and how devastating that was. And I don't know, it's just like I think sometimes in life if you know you're being recorded, you react a little differently, or you have almost like a funny reaction, or it's you want to act for the camera in a certain way. And especially when you think about her dad, he's not used to it. Like he hasn't had the cameras on him all season like Joey and Kelsey A have. So this is just the cameras coming into his house first time. And anyway, I just thought he was just a stand-up perfect guy. Obviously a guy that you can look up to and a great example for their family. But I think that was just so genuine that I truly believe she's never told him that before. Probably meant the world for him to hear that. She said, uh, you know, I think I'm falling in love with Joey, and he said, I love you. It just felt so strong. Like he was proud of her. And then Kelsey A's dad says he does think Joey would take care of her, and he does hope she comes back engaged. She says she's so sure of Joey, but it means everything for her to meet the family and feel validated. I just really like Joey's dad, or Kelsey A's dad's take on it. Was so refreshing for him to say that she should go for it. Like let the guard down, go for it. Um she says Kelsey's ready for happiness. She's ready for enjoying life. Um he it's just like normally it's the protection, like, well, what about the other women? And but in this case he was like, now, like it was almost like we've been through hard times. Like we've had mom pass away, your mom, my wife. And obviously that was devastating. And you can see how much that affected the family. And so he's like, yeah, you could get hurt. This is love, but at the end you got to go for it in life. And we saw 3 out of the 4 families basically have that exact same attitude. And you know that they're not talking to each other. Like they have no clue what the other families are saying. So it was just wild to me that that was the case. Um okay. Let's go to Rachel's hometown. So last thing before we sorry, I'm so sorry. Before we jump to Rachel's hometown, I just thought it was like a perfect hometown with Kelsey A. Just to sum it up, perfect hometown. They got the great date throughout the city of New Orleans. Kelsey A got validation from her family. And I think that Kelsey A is a firm first place. I think Joey can see himself in that family, can feel like he's a part of it. Um, oh, and I'm sorry. The last thing I want to say is how beautiful it is that The mom passed away, but they don't shy away from talking about her. They they talk about her all the time, like she's there, like she was a happy presence. They get out pictures of her. They talk about how butterflies remind everyone of mom, or at least for Kelsey A. They get out the picture book and show her. She's just like a regular part of the conversation, and in a very happy, positive way. And that's not always the case, I can tell you. So it was really amazing to hear that. All right, let's go to Rachel's hometown. So Rachel's hometown has to take place in Rancho Cucamonga. That's because she lives in Hawaii, and I guess they're not going all the way to Hawaii for this, which is kind of a major bummer. But at the same time, Joey's from Hawaii too, and he's been there, so he knows Hawaii. So it was all right. We go and we see sort of like an outside area before they go into the house, and we don't get to see a lot of what happened there. It looked like they were maybe playing some games in the yard. But anyway, Rachel gives him sort of the heads up, like, okay, you got to do this special hand gesture where you take the back of her hand and put it on the top of your head for my mom. And then um, I think he brought a gift for Rachel's dad. And then so he comes in and he does it, and he does it with both mom and dad. What I really liked about it was just how truly respectful he was. He doesn't laugh, he doesn't make fun of anything. His attitude was so positive and so respectful. And then they've got the whole pig cooked. It's everything. It's the head, the hooves, it's everything. And it's an honor that they do that, Rachel's mom explains. And then she talks about how if a boy is interested in the daughter, that the boy would eat the pig's ear, which I have no idea if that's an accurate thing. I feel very confident that it is, because Rachel's mom didn't seem like she was joking about that at all. But Joey eats it, he just eats it right away. I mean, this is a pig's ear, and he didn't even hesitate. He does it. Whether he wanted to do it or not, he was doing that because he wouldn't have shown any disrespect, or he wouldn't have not appreciated that. And you could see Joey or Rachel's mom, she was all about it. Um, Joey even says he loves the family coming together. They have great traditions. I just think Joey has such a great outlook on life. Like, he can appreciate that yes, their traditions are different than his, and he might think whatever he thinks about them, but he loves that they have traditions, which I totally agree with. That dance that they did, and hearing the backstory of how Spain came to the Philippines, and when the Spaniards came, they introduced that dance, and then the Philippines took that on, and so Rachel knows the dance, and then Joey learned it. It was just so cool. Feels like Rachel is liking the process, and Joey notices her. Rachel's dad says, "Don't get too high, don't get too low about something. That way, she can go on with life." And I think that there is a good lesson there in life, like don't get too high, don't get too low. But at the same time, like, and in very, I mean this in a healthy way, I do think you can get high and get low. I do think that being just like filled with emotion, that it's so incredibly high, it's like you just have to pause for a moment and soak that in, is amazing. And then being that kind of low is dangerous. So I don't want to act like it's not, but you can learn a lot from that. You can overcome things. If you are able to overcome things, you grow tremendously. Um, I get like wanting to protect your daughter and not wanting them to be too low. Like, I don't want my daughter to be as low as I some of my low points, but you also want to believe that they can overcome that and get out of it. I don't know. It's a very tricky conversation, and it's a tricky subject to think about. Of course, I don't want people being low. But at the same time, like, we have to learn these lessons in life, and life is not easy, and there are going to be low points. So, I mean, and heartache isn't always a bad thing. I certainly um, have learned a lot from it. You know, I wouldn't want to not have gone through hard times. So, I don't know. Now, it does seem like Rachel must have gone through a terrible breakup because just the way people talk about it, um, you wouldn't tell The Bachelor that you brought one guy home and that you got engaged and that you got crushed unless you had to. And then the mom and dad both bring it up. So it must have just been a devastating, like, they were madly in love and they got engaged and they were super close, and then maybe he just broke it off, and we don't really learn what happened there. It does seem like it was a big deal. And so maybe I don't understand the full context. We see Rachel getting emotional. She says she feels happy with Joey and she feels safe. Um, but it seems like the advice she's mostly getting is protect your heart. Don't allow yourself to put your walls down. It's the opposite advice that we see from the other three women. So Joey, let's see. Joey talks with Rachel's mom. Mom hits him with the tough questions. Mom starts crying. She wishes him the best, but she obviously wishes her daughter the best more. Um, she says that she told her daughter not to settle and she has so much to offer. Remember, there are three other women involved. Mom says Joey is a nice, genuine young man, which I would agree with, and that but there's three other young ladies. Rachel's worried her parents couldn't get on board. And they really didn't get on board, but at the same time they weren't really saying no either. Like I think that Joey did a lot to persuade them. Um but I still think that they want to protect her heart. And in a sense, her making it to next week is not helping that. There's no way he's picking. I mean, he just has a stronger connection with Kelsey A for sure. Daisy's tough. I think that Joey probably doesn't like that Daisy didn't come around until this episode, where it's been there all season with Kelsey A. But at the same time, I still think he has a stronger connection with Daisy. So I just don't see how she makes it another round. And so because she's making it to this next round, the breakup is only going to be that much harder. We do see Rachel and her sister talk. The sister says Rach has a caring heart. She deserves something good. She's been through a lot. Even the sister brings up that Rachel's been through a lot. So I do think that there was a breakup that, well, with the guy that we know of, and that it was just really hard on Rachel. Um, but you see that the family's amazing. Rachel's amazing. Joey sees that, and it was a good one-on-one. Joey says at the very end that he feels confident in his decision with these three women, and that he feels like all three of the relationships progressed forward. And so you right then you knew it was Maria going home, and that was when I was like devastated and also shocked. But when he said that, Maria's date didn't move forward and the other three did. So kind of gave it away. All right, let's just go to uh Daisy's one-on-one now. So Daisy's one-on-one was the funniest one to me because it felt like they were in a Hallmark movie. It felt like Hallmark Christmas in October in Minnesota. And um stopping to help the little kids make Christmas cookies. There's Christmas trees, there's llamas. But you know it's not December because like it's freezing in Minnesota. I don't know where Becker is, but it's freezing in Minnesota and pretty much 9 months out of the year, but in December when Christmas is. So I think it was probably late October, but they were kind of all pretending like it's Christmas, which is fine because Christmas season does pretty much start like November 1st. And you can kind of say with like the Nightmare Before Christmas that Halloween and Christmas sort of like have a thing, but it's not full blown Christmas yet. And we've got like Christmas trees and llamas and snow getting pumped into the air and um, all the cookies being decorated. It felt like it was Christmas Day in October, and then you've got the Hallmark like clothes on, and you see Christmas trees in the background, and I mean, it really felt like it could have been a Hallmark movie. I couldn't get past it. It was so funny. I had to research when it was filmed. But then we see Daisy talking with her friends, and she's telling her friends about Joey. Friends all seem to like Joey. One thing I noticed was that when Daisy was telling her friends the story of how she kind of worked her, like her basically how she got to know Joey, and then when she started to develop feelings, and when she told Joey about her cochlear implant, Joey doesn't like look at the friends and bop 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 to see like how they're reacting and smile and try to like network and build with the friends. And the network isn't the right word, but like just build a little mini relationship in that moment with her friends. Now, you might react and say, is that good? Is that bad? I think it's just hard not to do. So sometimes I find whenever I'm out in life, if somebody's telling a story and it's about you, you want to look at the people that are hearing the story naturally. But really, the person you should be looking at in that moment is the woman telling the story that you're falling in love with. And yes, you would definitely look to her, and then, but you would think you would be looking back and then bop, 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 looking at all the people hearing the story, nodding along, chiming in. But Joey's so respectful. It's like, no, this is her moment. She hasn't seen her friends in 6 weeks. He's the lead, he gets all the screen time, but this is her moment to tell the story and be excited. And she can feel that he's like looking at her and does not break away. And I just think that that's a subtle thing, but it's just something that I encounter a lot being out in those situations where you're in a circle of people that you only know one and you're meeting somebody and a story's being told. And Joey's just so buttoned up in these moments. He always says and does the right thing, and he's always behaving in just this really buttoned up, sharp way. I don't think that's ever going to change. It's like ingrained in who he is. And I admire that about him. Um, the friends all comment on how happy Daisy looks, and Joey reaffirms that in his ITMs. We meet the family. Daisy talks about her journey. First time her brother's voice sounded. So this was really cool. I can't remember, but I think she said either all voices sound similar or all voices are indistinguishable. It was one of those two. But they can be squeaky like a chipmunk, and they don't really sound like their actual voice. But when her brother spoke, she comments that it did sound like his actual voice, and that this is the first time it's done that since before she lost her hearing, which would be really emotional feeling. And so she gets really excited about it. And it's easy to desensitize yourself to something like this. It's like, okay, this is the eighth episode. We've probably heard 6 out of the 8 episodes Daisy talk about how she lost her hearing. And so I do think it's very easy to be like, we get it. We know you lost your hearing. But that would be a complete wrong take. You would never stop talking about that. Like, if you lose your eyesight, if you lose your sense of being able to feel heat, feel warmth, feel touch, if you lose your sense of smell, it, like losing your hearing would be like extremely terrible. It'd be so hard to survive. We rely on that so much, and I think it would just feel like so foreign, like you're on an alien planet, like an um, inescapable anxiety would come over your body. I cannot imagine what that would be like. Now, the closest thing for me is I have a lot of earwax. This is so stupid because it's not anywhere near what she's gone through, but I do develop a lot of earwax, and I've had it so bad that I had to go into the doctor, and they actually had to stick they tried hot water and it wasn't working, and they had to stick a long, um, metal, like, kinda pick needle in my ear, and they, like, pried away, and this really hard piece of earwax came out. After they pried it away from my ear, they used hot water again, and they were able to get it out, and it feels like you can hear again for the first time, and I've actually had to do that in both ears, about 2 or 3 times. Now I have this kid at home that I do it so that it doesn't happen, but more information than people probably wanted to know, but what I can tell you is the very first time that this happened, in one of my ears, I couldn't hear at all. And didn't know what to do. I didn't know that you could go to the doctor and get that taken out. I didn't know that that was what was happening. I just couldn't hear. And it got worse and worse and worse. It's sort of like, I feel like I can't hear. And then I was like touching that side of my head. I was like snapping, and I was like, I can't hear anything over here. And sort of at the same time got like bad over here, but it got to the point where I just couldn't hear, like, period. And then when you can't hear, I started to get vertigo. I think that's what I actually had because I couldn't sleep. I found myself getting out of bed and I left the house like 3:30 in the morning. It was in the middle of the summer, so it was hot out. And I just started walking around outside in downtown Nebraska, and I thought it was going crazy. And I mean, I could not sleep. I couldn't drive to work. I called in sick to work. And this went on for like 5 days. And I just was losing my mind. But then I go into the doctor and problems instantly solved. And they take it out. And then I learned a little bit and just kind of like deal with that now. But once the problem is solved, it's like, okay, problem's over, good to go. And to go like a whole year without being able to hear, I think she went more than that. And then not only that, but it affects her health in other ways. Like, so you can't hear your loved ones telling you that they love you and that they are here for you and comforting you. Can't hear anything. And that, like, people have to communicate with you via writing things down. So I just think like you would never stop talking about it. It would affect you forever. And when she says, um, like, she doesn't know if, oh, geez, sorry. I'm getting really emotional thinking about it. But, when she says, she doesn't know if, she said something along the lines of waking up and just being healthy is something to be happy about. And she doesn't want to be in a position where she wakes up and a guy decides he doesn't want to be with her anymore. She just wants to be like, well, guy doesn't like me, who cares? I'm healthy. And she just doesn't want to go through the pain that she went through again. And I get it because she probably didn't go into a ton of detail about that pain, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with anxiety, because the anxiety of not being able to hear and losing your sense of, like, hearing, it would just be almost too much to bear. It would be horrible. And so to kind of be through the bad part of that and to come out the other side, I do totally get it. It's like, I think she's 25. So to spend the year 23 of your life in bed, and it sounds like all those friends were really there for her, and at that age in life your friends are everything, so it was really cool that they came to support her. But yeah, I totally get why this is such a big deal to her, and how she's just like wants to be excited about being healthy, and she's had a hard time being vulnerable. But then we do get to see Joey and Daisy's mom. Mom feels like Joey does love her. Mom says Daisy's not been vulnerable, which we get. Then we see Daisy and Daisy's mom. Mom says Joey told her about that. And Daisy thinks that it's true, but she doesn't know why it's happening. And then they kind of talk through it, and we learn that, she's just like not, she's worried about, like him not being there one day, probably because it could turn for the worse. And does she trust that he'll stick around? But I think she is sort of convinced that she needs to take down her walls, and she sort of sees the point that her mom's making. Um, I loved the scene we get with Daisy and her dad talking. Dad has like super sweet curly hair. It's sort of like Joey's got perfect hair, and it was just kind of like when you see somebody like Joey having perfect hair, you kind of compare that to the dad's hair sometimes, and it's like, okay, well, Daisy's dad has perfect hair and he's much older. So I don't know. I just put that connection together. I probably focus on hair for obvious reasons more than most people do, but um, I really liked what he said about like shoot your shot, and then if it hits, it's all the marbles. I just feel like I'm gonna start saying that all the time. And then he goes, if it doesn't hit, it's not like you're gonna lose your hearing over it. And it was just perfect. It was funny. It was like laugh out loud funny. And then he says, like, it's just love, and you gotta go for it. I love that attitude. Like I said, the same thing with Kelsey's family, and same thing with Maria's dad. Joey and Daisy talk after hometowns. She says, I'm falling in love. I've been falling in love. Her whole family can see it. She's gonna go for it. And so, like, obviously, this was just an awesome Hallmark Christmas in October hometowns. Everything went well. Daisy does open up, and we do see Daisy get farther than, like, we thought maybe this was going to be a problem where Daisy didn't get there, and that was the reason holding her back. But she does get there. I think that that's squashed. Like, that storyline is over. Now it's Daisy's all in, Kelsey A's all in, Rachel, she does say she's all in at the end of hers. Even though that wasn't necessarily the family's advice, she kind of goes against that. Maybe the sister a little bit said that, but they're all pretty much all in. And then we get to Maria's hometown. So they're not going to Hawaii, and they're not going to Canada, and they're in Niagara Falls. First thing Joey says, he says, I don't want to leave here with any doubt. He has doubts with her. That was when he says, when he lets her go, I just have too many doubts. So he wants to leave with no doubt. When he lets her go, he says, I have too many doubts. So he had a lot of doubt coming in. She probably almost didn't make it to this week. But at the same time, I don't know how she didn't make it to next week. So they check out the waterfall. He says he always has fun with Maria. She gives him the shot. She says it tastes like Canada, which I loved. Joey brings up that she doesn't do this with anyone. Um, they need to have a talk. Okay, yeah. So Maria says that she's never brought a guy home before, and Joey seems really upset about it. And if you go back and like do a quick rewind of the way Joey says in his interview, I can't believe she's never brought anyone home before. I think that was another doubt. Like I think Maria truly meant it. I think she thought when she was saying I've never brought anyone home before that it was going to be this wonderful sort of like tribute to Joey, like you're so amazing that I'm willing to bring you home, and I've never brought anyone home before, but you're finally the one. And I think past bachelor or bachelorettes have taken it that way. But maybe because that's not who Joey is. I think he's 28, Maria's 29. I don't think that that's necessarily that old. Maybe it is. I don't see it like that. So, but Joey's definitely felt like that was a big deal. And I think he saw it as another red flag because If she's never brought anyone home before, then that must mean that Rachel doesn't get serious with guys. He almost likes that Rachel has been through that epic engagement like breakup, because it means that she's all in. She's ready to get married. She wants that move to this stage of life where you're in a dedicated relationship. And for whatever reason, Maria is about Maria, and Maria is about having fun and like not settling and being all true to who she is all the time and not bringing people home to the family. I don't know any of that. I'm just speculating, but Joey did seem like it was a big deal, and his eyes get huge in that interview. He's like, can't believe she's never brought anyone home before. And his eyes just get so big. So they go have a talk. She tries to help him feel better about what happened last week. And I even wrote down, she tries to make him feel 100% in, but Joey's not buying it. Like, you can tell that what Maria says in the interview is spot on what he wants to hear. And then you go and see the way Maria talks to him, and it's not the same thing. Like, for whatever reason, she has a hard time communicating how she feels to Joey. She says she's all in. She says, I need to explain to Joey that I am all in. I am here. That wasn't the real me last week. But then she goes and talks to him, and that's not really the message she conveys. And then he's not buying it. Something is off, though, because if you go back to like episodes 1, 2, and 3, and it's Maria versus 31 other women, I truly felt like no other woman had the ability to speak on their feet and be so buttoned up and say the perfect thing every time. She sort of thinks out loud so she can talk quickly. And I guess every once in a while that seemed to backfire on her, and maybe we only saw good cuts of Maria. But it seems like she was just really quick and really able to articulate how she felt in a great way. That's not necessarily what we saw the last 2 weeks, where she just wasn't able to say what Joey needed to hear. And she definitely seemed smart enough to know what he needed to hear. I think he was laying it out pretty well. Like, I have doubts. Why I'm worried about you wanting to go home last week. And so she knew what he needed, and she didn't say it. All right, so Maria tells her friend that Joey's hot. I kind of feel like that was just a little bit, maybe it's just via comparison, but it felt like immature to me. Obviously, they're attracted to each other, but none of the other women are talking like that. They seem more serious and wanting to get married, whereas for me, it's like, is this just fun for Maria? Is she just excited to be on The Bachelor and to have made it this far, and that The Bachelor's hot, and she's, but maybe that's just her being excited with her friend. In real life, that's of course like how everybody on the show is talking. But to say it when you know you're on camera is my point. The friend, though, asked Maria how Maria feels about the other women. Maria doesn't like it. Friend is worried that he's not saying the full you. Friend says Maria pushes people away when she's not sure of the outcome. Maria agrees. Dad and Joey, shirt wide open. Okay, so I wrote down that the dad's shirt's just wide open. You've got the necklace, and he's got this gold watch. Just looks like I don't know. They were playing the mafia music in the background. I can't get like Willy Wonka out of my head because of what Evan from Your Mom and Dad podcast said. He's definitely got a Willy Wonka vibe, and then we hear him say, one big fat Greek Italian wedding. So I think maybe he's Greek and the mom is Italian. I don't know. Could be a reverse, but he definitely has a presence. And he talks about how dad and daughter, they're super close. She is his entire world. We hear the accident. Dad talks a little bit about the accident, how they became inseparable. Um, Joey makes it clear to him that she has expressed her feelings for him, but he has not expressed anything back to any of the four women. And that's been intentional because there's no way he could say it to all four, which I think is pretty cool of Joey to say. And I've noticed that, like, Joey never says it back. And we haven't heard Joey tell any of the girls why he's not saying it back. He just kind of doesn't say it back, which I especially like that. He's not like undercutting his position of not saying it back by explaining that he can't say it back. He's just not saying it back. Like, hey, I'm not going to say it. And he doesn't explain why, which is great. We all know why, but he's not saying that. He did tell it to Maria's dad, which I think is appropriate because Maria's dad's protecting his daughter, and Joey's like trying to comfort the dad. Just being like, hey, I haven't said it back, just so you know, to any of the four women. But he doesn't tell the girls that. We see Daddy and Maria. Dad says he's never seen Maria this happy, that she's glowing. She says in the beginning it took her a while to open up. Dad says she needs to put her guard down, that he's a good guy. Dad tells Maria about the blessing conversation, which that was really cute, how Maria says, you're not supposed to tell me that. And I really think when Maria heard that from her dad, she felt like she was for sure going to get a rose. And I do think there was a moment of shock when she didn't. Dad says she doesn't want to admit it, but she's fallen in love with him. That was just kind of heartbreaking to think about, how she doesn't get a rose after this. Then we see Joey and Maria go and watch Maria's family video. And it's just kind of wild. Like Maria is just, feel like I'm in the exact same boat. Like I feel like I'm putting myself in Joey's shoes and I'm trying to make a decision with these women. And Maria is the wild card because your high with Maria feels higher than any of them. But the low with Maria is lower than any of them. And I think it's sort of like the next highest high is Kelsey A. And there's no low with Kelsey A at all. And then the next highest high is with Daisy. And there is a little bit of a low there because Daisy, for a while, was basically saying, I can't express true feelings for you yet. And then with Rachel, I feel like there's not really much low, but I just don't know if the high is as high as the other four women. So in my mind, it's Kelsey A, Daisy, Maria, but then it's really tricky because you almost have to say that Maria's beating Daisy because the high is the highest. And Kelsey and Daisy for a long time was saying she couldn't have any feelings there. So in my mind, the top two should be Maria and Kelsey A, and then it's just like a really hard decision. If it came down to those two, I don't know what he would do. I think now we know it's going to be Kelsey A. Just my call, my prediction here. Seemingly out of nowhere, we get Jessie Palmer appearing from like behind a chopper or something to let Maria know that, like, ladies, Joey, it's the final rose tonight. And then he's gone. And I think that we know, like, Jessie Palmer had a baby, first child with his wife, I think in January, and this is October. So it's like 32 weeks pregnant, 30 weeks pregnant. But they're in Los Angeles. I don't know where Jessie Palmer lives. I would guess maybe Los Angeles, although he's from Canada. I don't know. I just can't figure out why he's not really been there that much. He's been there way more on previous seasons, Bachelor in Paradise. I didn't watch The Golden Bachelor, but this doesn't seem like a regular amount of Jessie Palmer. And it was kind of a bummer we didn't get to see him play tennis this week or anything. Maria goes home. I thought Joey's goodbye talk with her was great. Again, he was just great with his words. He didn't try to assume that his words should comfort her. He even said, like, they're probably not going to comfort you, and I apologize for that. Um, but the reason was he had too much doubt and his relationships with the other women had progressed farther. And I think that that was so true. Like, Maria did give him doubt. And so it makes sense that he just like didn't do it. I so badly want Maria to just come back somehow. I mean, that doesn't really happen at this part in the season, but we did see the clip of Joey saying, "Has this ever happened before?" Um, maybe it does happen. Like, or I mean, maybe it has happened in previous seasons and I'm not aware of it. I just don't know. I mean, I'm not getting the vibes that that's going to happen. But Joey seemed very confident in his decision. And the whole like Maria, I guess we should talk about how she doesn't say I love you. And this is just I brought it up earlier. She says in the interview that she's going to tell him that she's falling in love with him because that's how she feels. And then when she goes to say goodbye, she doesn't say it. And then she says she regrets it in the interview again. And it's almost like there's two interviews. There's the one right before she goes to say goodbye where she says, I'm going to say it. Then she says goodbye. And then we see the interview afterwards where she's like, I don't know why I didn't say it. And then we see, at the Chopper house that Maria pulls him aside and tells him that she loves him. But like, Joey just seems like the kind of guy that like I said this last week, he thinks and broods over every decision. He spends a lot of time and then he kind of justifies his decision in his mind by saying whatever. He's like reinforcing his decision. Yes, I've made the right decision. Blah blah blah. This is why, because this person. And I think like Kelsey A, if I think he feels like if he proposed to her, she's saying yes and they're gonna be together forever. Daisy, probably not 100% sure. Rachel, I think he feels like with Rachel that he probably needs to have a conversation with her, which they would be able to do in the overnight fantasy suite. But if they have that conversation and she commits to like saying yes, I'm sure he'll ask in the fantasy suite, hey, if I propose to you at the end, are you going to say yes? And I think that you can take her at that word. Like if she says that the answer to that question would be yes, I think he would believe that. With Daisy, she might say, like, she might reply with, I don't know. And then I don't know if he knows for sure. I don't think Daisy would be picked in that scenario. I think with Maria, it's like he doesn't even believe what she says. He just has too much doubt. So there's just no point in really moving her forward because the doubt is too strong. And she is pretty much like the last week, this week, maybe even a couple other weeks. And then there was the whole drama situation with Maria. Like he had to pull her aside many times. And he says to her in his conversation, we've had a bumpy road. I do think that there's a good chance that they um I don't know, I don't want to call them friends because that would probably be inappropriate, but are very civil. They're both like bachelorette icons. Like Maria is a made woman. She's going to be back. She's going to be back in some way. Obviously, they love her. She's either going to be the bachelorette or she's going to be on Bachelor in Paradise. I think there's a good chance Daisy's the bachelorette because I think he's going to pick Kelsey A. And Daisy's pretty fantastic. Maria could be the bachelorette. I think no matter what, all three of the women that don't get picked are going to be back in some way. Bachelor in Paradise or whatever it is. Bachelorette. Um, Also thought it was interesting how when Rachel asked Joey for some time to talk, when Maria asked Joey for some time to talk right before he does the rose, when Maria gets back, Rachel is pissed. And she's like, what was that about? She's like, oh, nothing. And Rachel's like, no, what was that about? And Maria's like, I don't know. And then Rachel's like, you don't know? And you just asked him to talk? And Maria's like, look, I'll tell you some other time. It's like, I was trying Maria, I could just see Maria being like, "Hey, I tried to give you the nice answer twice. Twice. I tried to give you the I don't know, the nice like, "Hey, let's not make this a thing" answer. And then you asked me 3 times, and the 3rd time you're like questioning me like you don't know. Obviously, I know. I'd be like, "Obviously I know. I'm not telling you. That's why I'm giving you this answer." Um Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. But we did get to see another side of Rachel there. Like, there's a side of Rachel that gets pissed, and I'm sure they all can get pissed. But Rachel was like, if you noticed last week, Joey asked Maria right before the rose ceremony for some extra time to talk, and Rachel was pissed about that. But she doesn't confront Maria. She looks at the other girls and is like, "I thought we weren't doing time to talk." And I have to say, those 2 moments. Now Joey doesn't get to see either of them really. But those 2 moments for me are kind of turnoffs. Like, they're just whiny. Like, this is a game show. This is The Bachelor, Bachelorette, and I love it. It's reality TV though. And there is sort of a game. It's a process that works, but it's also a process to get views on TV. And that's part of the game. Sometimes people just do that as a total strategy move. I mean, has Rachel not kissed him as part of a strategy move right in front of everybody? Pretty sure during the very first group date when they were all in the wedding dresses, she did something like that. Like, they've all done things throughout the whole season to get some little thing. And I'm sure Maria knew that she was either going home or getting the last rose because Daisy got the first one-on-one, and Daisy's been drama free. And Kelsey A, just, I'm sure, like, they all noticed that Kelsey A has a strong relationship with him. I don't know how they wouldn't. Maria has had ups and downs all season. So I think that they probably just, I'm sure Maria and Rachel had a sense about it. All right. So we do see the clip for next week. It looks like there's a little note that says we need to have a talk, but we don't know who it's from. It could be from anyone. It's really hard to read into that. Fantasy Suite Week is always there's always drama because of the whole if they have sex and he has sex with all 3 of them, if he has sex with one of them and not the others, it's like there's always drama involved no matter what the outcome is. I guess if he didn't have sex with any of them and he didn't talk about that at all, then maybe there'd be no drama, but I don't know. There still probably would because even if they don't have sex, you don't really want a person that you're starting to have real intimate feelings with spending the night with someone else and then feeling like they're choosing you. Even if they are choosing you, they just spent the night in somebody else's bed. Like, that would feel terrible. And this is always the best. Like, you totally need it to know if your relationship is there, and you're really trying to figure out if, like, in a week or 2 you can be engaged. So you got to have this. But at the same time, it is brutal to think about that person doing that with 2 other people, which they're going to do. So it's just one of the hardest episodes. But it's usually for the viewer's perspective, it's like really great TV and it's really great to talk about. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed talking through these with me. If you have and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would mean a lot. Trying to get to 50 subscribers so I can do YouTube lives. Thank you for watching and have a good night.